All right, I see we are live in the chat. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 10:03. Dr. Leslie, if we could get a roll call, please.
Yes. So when I call your name, if you would not mind just coming off mute and saying here, if you are currently having any sound issues, you can also type it in the chat. I will monitor there as well. Dr. Tiffany Locklear, Representative John Lowry, Dr. LaRonda Lowry,
Here.
Miss Dorothy Yates,
Dorothy Yates here.
thank you, Miss Dorothy, Stephen Bell,
Here.
Tamara Carter,
Here.
Danya Edwards,
Here.
Philip Harley. I know Philip's here. He's in a meeting at school, so he is here. Sherry Herndon, Mercedes Lanier,
Here.
Anita Locklear,
Here.
Kristen Oxendine, Will Paul,
Here.
Candace Revels. I know Candace is here.
She
Chair,
just
you have
she
okay.
just put in the chat she can't hear anything, but she's here. So,
Perfect. Chair,
yeah.
you have quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Leslie. Well, welcome everyone to our first meeting of the 2026-2027 school year. We're excited for everything we've got ahead. This is our summit year. So for those who are new, that means that we've got our summit that will be in February, hosted at UNCP, for folks throughout the state to join and collaborate around Indian Ed initiatives to support our students. So we're really excited about the work that's going to happen with that. For those I haven't met, my name is Stephen Bell, proud member of the Lumbee tribe, and I am the current chairperson for SACE. So we're excited. Everyone is here virtually. I hate that we can't be present in person, but once tech works out, we'll make it happen. So to get us started, if I can get an approval of our agenda, so I need a first motion, second motion.
This is Dorothy Yates. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
This is LaRonda Lowry. I second.
All right, all in favor, either say aye or give me a thumbs up on the reaction.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Agenda for August 21st, 2026 is approved. I also need a motion to approve April 2026 minutes as well.
I, Danya Edwards, move to approve the April 2026 minutes as written.
Thank you, Ms. Danya. If I can also get a second.
Tamara Carter, I second.
Thank you, Ms. Tamara. All approve, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay. So moved, approved April 2026 minutes. And then we are going to pause on swearing in our new members until we are in person. So we will save that for our October 23rd meeting. But thank you to all of our new members who are joining us this year. We are excited that y'all are with us. One of the things we like to do to start our meetings that aligns the work that our superintendent Mo Green does is helping us celebrate the excellence in our schools. So I want to start us off by sharing. Anyone want to come off mute and share what excellent things are you seeing from our Native students, from our Indian Ed programs, from anything that you're seeing in your community that you want to celebrate, give a shout out to. Can be students, can be teachers or staff, can be other community members. I'll start us off while you're thinking. We just had a 2 week summer culture camp with our kids, which I know a lot of you have done. And we had 1 week where we focused on music, and our kids got to make some music, and they did a really great job. So that was just a lot of fun to spend time with them. So I want to give them a shout out. So anybody else?
The Kahari tribe, we also collaborated with them this past summer for a week-long summer camp. We had almost triple the amount of kids as we did the previous year. So this was our second year, and they immersed themselves not only in hands-on activities, but also history. So that was really big because that was at the forefront before our pageant. So things really worked well, and we were just excited just because of the participation.
Anybody else? What excellent things are you seeing?
This is Candace Rebels. We're having a lot more partnership with our Urban Indian organization because it's really thriving. They are applying for a lot more grants. They've got the help of a grant writer, so that's really exciting. Some opportunities that I'll get to partner with them to share with our students. So I love to see when the folks around me are thriving because it just makes our program even better. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank y'all for sharing those great things. Continue to do those on, Facebook and social media. Of course, I got to shout out Dr. Leslie for having a fantastic McNayo conference that many of our kids got to go to at Campbell. So shout out Dr. Leslie. Always a great time. So thank you for all the work you do to make that happen. Um, so first up, we've got Dr. Olivia Oxendine, one of our State Board of Education members, who's going to provide us with some updates. Thank you, Dr. Olivia, for being here.
Absolutely. And now it's wonderful to join you again in a SACY meeting and uh, to to hear. And some of you probably are a little bit bashful to share, but I have a way of knowing all the good things that are happening across Native American student land. So everything that you commit to time and energy and collaboration efforts to make things better for our Indian students is certainly appreciated by the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction. I've got a couple of I want to begin by congratulating Stephen on your promotion, and I know you're going to do a fantastic job. I'm sure that everything that already appears on your resume has just been a really good scaffold for you to get to the next level. So in short time, we expect to see you running for governor. So we already have that challenge out there for you. You may think about it. And I also want to share some good news. Um, we have, as part of the membership of the State Board of Education, we have a cadre of advisors. We have one of our advisors, our standing advisors, is the North Carolina Teacher of the Year, the North Carolina Principal of the Year, the North Carolina Superintendent of the Year. We also have the chairman of the North Carolina School Boards Association, And that association is the group that supports our local school boards. And that whoever serves in the role of chair of that very large, the membership is expansive, is also an advisor for 1 year to the State Board of Education. And we also have 2 student advisors. The student advisors go back, I suppose, maybe 20 years. And I am so thrilled to say that for the very first time ever in the history of the advisor membership to the State Board of Education, we have an American Indian student who is going to join us next year. Actually, her first meeting is next month. Her name is Keely Deal, and she is a junior at Purnell Sweat High School. And she's going to be one of 2 student advisors who attend the State Board of Education meetings, all meetings. If we go on planning retreats, our advisors join us. Whatever the State Board does or visits or whatever we're about, those advisors are there to mainly advise the State Board of Education from their perspective. In other words, Keely will be she will be raising her hand occasionally and saying, this is what I think American Indian students would benefit from. Or Keely might want to do a survey of American Indian students, or all students for that matter, and poll them on some of their wishes, some of their desires from the State Board of Education, some of the things that are concerning them, just to tap into the opinions and the insights of our student population in North Carolina. So Keely is going to be one of the 2 student advisors. So we're so happy over that decision, and I want to give a shout out to Superintendent Green. He is 99% responsible for making that happen, because it is the state superintendent who plays a major role in the selection of our student advisors. So if you know Keely, you might want to drop her a note, congratulate her, familiarize her to the work, and I know Dr. Leslie is going to do that in short order, to the work and the purpose of SACE. I think it will be part of her learning, her all the things that she learns this year or the next year. Part of that must be becoming familiar with SACE and its history and its purpose, and some of the major accomplishments going back to 1988, the beginning of SACE, and especially becoming familiar with all the legislative activities around SACE. So again, and I think Dr. Leslie is probably going to invite Keely to one of our, or maybe several of our meetings in the near future. So that's just the good news. Now let me move on to my presentation. A couple of things that I want to highlight from our August meeting of the State Board. A couple of things. One of the presentations we had this past month has to do with grade 5 career exploration. And this was enacted through General Statute 115C 157. We have been, as a result of this legislation, the State Board of Education, the Department of Public Instruction, have been promoting career exploration before grade 8. The standard course of study begins to expose students to CTE opportunities, courses and opportunities in grade 8 formally, and all the way through grade 12. But knowing that we want our students to begin thinking about their future paths, careers, education before grade 8, the General Assembly passed this piece of legislation to not require every school district to have a grade 5 exploration program, but to encourage them to do so. So I want to give you some highlights from where we are in that piece of legislation. This was presented this was a consent item in August. It will come back to us next month for approval. And what has to be approved is an annual report of what is going on in grade 5 in the area of career exploration across our 115 school districts, as well as our charter schools. So as you see, it says each local Board of Education is encouraged, not mandated, but encouraged to implement a career awareness program for students in grade 5. You might want to know, well, why not in grade 6 or why not grades 5 through 7? Because it formally picks up in grade 8. I don't know what the reasoning behind that, but grade 5 is where the General Assembly felt that we needed to move down grade-wise from grade 8. So if implemented, the local school board must annually report all the program activities and the student outcomes of their career exploration program. That has to be reported to the state board by August 1. And like I said, we're getting ready to submit the annual report to the General Assembly, probably have it over to the General Assembly in September, because you see that there is a November 15th deadline by which time we, the state board, must submit our consolidated report to what is called JLOC, the Joint Legislative Education Oversight Committee. So if you want to learn a little bit more about K-5 career exploration in your districts, then I would recommend that you call an elementary school principal or a school counselor, or you might want to call your central office, the director of CTE, because those individuals will be the ones to have pertinent information about grade 5 CE. And I believe the last time I read, to my knowledge, I think every district, all 115 districts, by now have moved forward with a grade 5 program. So these are your contact people. You're a principal, if you know a principal, most of you probably do. The counselor of the school would certainly be hands-on in helping create these opportunities in grade 5. Central office, your CTE director, and at the state level, the senior director of CTE, who is very, very hands-on in this piece of legislation and making it happen, is Trey Michael. So we'll move on. Do you have questions? Well, I'm not through. Wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have another slide on this. So if we could go, yeah. So these are the proposed activities that school systems, grade 5 and school systems may implement or explore. They may decide to do middle grade tours. You see in 2024, we had 47, about 48,000 students. That's statewide, all 5th grade students. This is a statewide number, took part in middle school tours. That number has increased substantially to this last report. High school tours is another opportunity. You see those two columns, the comparison of those two columns, and you see we have an increase there as well. Guest speakers from 45,000 to 53. That's a very nice jump. Career field trips from 7. This is remarkable. You know, I had to do a double take on this. Field trips, look at this, from 7, almost 8,000 to almost 40,000. So school activity buses were very busy across the state with the career field trips. Career fairs, for some reason, there's a dip in that. Maybe Trey Michael might have a handle on that or could explain why, but there's a career fair takes a lot of time. I don't know. So, but there is a dip. And interest inventories, there's a nice increase in that area. That simply means working with the school counselor, probably and others, to come up with surveys to tap into the interest of our grade 5 students in terms of what they want to do or be when they grow up. Job shadowing is fairly stable, and I would imagine I can understand. Actually, I'm going to applaud almost 1,300 students involved in job shadowing, because job shadowing typically takes place in high school, in your upper grades, not in 5th grade. I would be interested in learning a little bit more about how job shadowing looks in grade 5, because there would have to be a lot of coordination with business and industry, providing time for students. I can't imagine in school time. It must be after school time or maybe during weekends. But anyway, very, very interesting piece, very interesting activity. And then just a range of other activities. There are 20,000 other activities, almost 21,000 in 2024, 25, and somewhat of a decline in other activities for this year's report. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide, Leslie. So another highlight is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. This is a survey that has taken place. It is administered by the CDC, Centers for Disease Control. It's actually, the survey is owned by the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. But it's a nationwide survey that is distributed all over to all schools and school systems across the country and territories as well. Since 1993, this anonymous survey is administered to middle and high school students. Selection is random. I don't believe, yeah, right. Random and conducted every odd year. So 2025 was the year that North Carolina conducted the study, or the survey rather. Participation by students, it's voluntary. Now it is since 2021, this survey is completed electronically and it takes place. So it doesn't interfere with the school day. They have it organized and structured in such a way that this can be completed in one class period. Parents must be notified. I'm not sure if there's an opt-in or opt-out provision in that, but they must be notified. Questions cover these categories across these dimensions: mental health, tobacco and vaping, sexual behavior, sleep, physical activity, nutrition, safety, substance abuse, and school connections. So there are probably a range of questions. It may be the same number of questions, or it could vary by, by question domain. 25 high schools participated this year. Approximately out of that 25 high schools, about 1,700 usable surveys were available for Dr. Ellen Essick and her team to analyze. And then we'll go over, I want to just share a few highlights from the survey. A few findings since 2005. This is good. There's mostly good news in a bit of data that I'm going to share with you. I'm telling you, this report in terms of the analysis and the findings is full of good facts. Just no need for me to even begin to go there in such a brief time. But Dr. Locklear at some point might want to invite Dr. Essick to a SACE meeting and go in depth, kind of more of a deep journey into the data with you. So there is, you notice there's a decline in alcohol use from 42% in 2005 to 26% in 2025. Good news. Marijuana has declined from 21% to 10%. Vaping has declined from the highest point was in 2019, 36%, to 2025 was 12.6%, but it still is a problem to prevent and control at the school level. And in 21, about 34% students reported poor mental health most of the time, compared to 2025. When that same question was asked, there's a noticeable decline to 19%, a response rate. And that question was, they reported poor mental health. I don't know if the question breaks down mental health into categories. That is a question that Dr. Essick would be able to answer. And then over to the next slide, Dr. Locklear. This is really fast. This question must be constructed differently. I think it's just a straightforward question with I don't know how it's structured, so I won't even go there, but it's an interesting finding. An adult in school with whom to connect. In other words, the question is asking, is there someone in your school, an adult, that I can go to and talk and share and get advice, and on and on and on. In 2021, almost 60% of the students answered yes. In 2025, that's an increase, about 64%. Teachers care and encourage me. In 2021, about 42%. In 2025, about 52%. Okay, and then we'll go on to I think this might be the last slide. Students feel safe at school. This is really interesting. The difference in the way an A student answers compared to a DF student. Now, this is a question for Dr. Essick. How is that revealed on the survey? How would we know? Maybe it's up to the student to supply that information on the survey, part of the profile or the demographic information of the survey. Maybe that's where that information is located. But regardless, an A student, about 5% feel unsafe, 5% of A students. But look at the almost, 34% of students, typically the D and F student, feel unsafe at school. And, we could take 15, 22 hours and talk about what is causing that. This is where the discussion, the important discussion needs to arise. Students feel they belong, the belongingness at school. A students, 68%. DF students, 39%. And as we all know, the D and F students who begin to feel as though they don't belong, they're misfit, they have no friends, they have no adult to whom to turn, those students tend to get on a track toward dropping out. So for additional information, you could go to your school system central office, the director of school counseling. If the system took part in the survey, and that I can't answer, Dr. Essick would be able to answer that question. If the system took, and the question you might ask is, did our system take part in the youth risk behavior survey this year? The director of counseling at the district level would be able to answer that question. And probably the person who directs health and PE might be able to answer that question. The DPI contact, the person who administers this survey for North Carolina, is Dr. Ellen Essick, and she is the section chief for Healthy Schools. And I believe that takes care of my update. I'm more than glad to entertain your questions.
Dr. Livy, I've got a question.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing this information. I know you shared that there were 25 schools that were selected. Do you have any either like demographic information or just location information about like where those schools were located or how
Perfect.
how they select
Perfect.
those?
Perfect, Stephen. This is what Leslie, I would like for Leslie, and I think Leslie might already be in touch with Ellen Essick. She's the one, Stephen, who can answer those questions. She can tell you how many, well, we know 25 high schools, but she would know where they're located.
Yeah, and
Because
Stephen, I can contact Dr. Ellen. I know last time I spoke with her, whether or not we invite her to SACY is always dependent on whether or not that sampling involved a large population of American Indian students. Previously, 2 years ago, it did, and we saw that data reflected in that report. And I will look in this report to see if this sampling reflects American Indian students. We did also bring up, is there a way that we can ensure American Indian students are involved in this report? And if I recall correctly, there is not, because it is that kind of sampling. So unfortunately, we may see a ratio that allows us to see data. We may not, but I'm happy to reach back out to Dr. Ellen, find out, and then see how that breaks down for American Indian students.
there's a piece of data I did not share with you in this presentation, but it was striking and alarming. And I raised the question when Ellen made the presentation to State Board a couple of weeks ago. It has to do with suicide ideation. And the number, I don't have the exact wording of the question, but it doesn't matter. It really had to do with how often do I think about suicide, something like that. I mean, that's a rough kind of structure of the item. But my question was, I know the anonymity around the survey and why it's that way, and so much of the information is, we want to know where the students are and how can we help them. But for some reason, the youth risk behavior survey just keeps important information secret or something. But it would be so helpful for principals and counselors and teachers to know, my word, do we have students in our school who think about suicide? There's got to be a way to, if it's not through this survey, maybe there's some other way, some other avenue to gather that information. Suicide ideation, and it was an alarming stat in this survey because it caught my attention. I want to know, how do these principals, will they have some way of finding out if are you in my school? So important. Other questions? Well, thank you very much. I always enjoy being with you.
Thank you, Dr. Olivia.
I see a note in the chat telling where we can go to find further information.
Yes, I do see that. Thank y'all. Yeah, it looks like there's 2 links that might have some graphs. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing that. Okay, great. Yeah, so take a look at those. All right. Next up, we've got Dr. Leslie, who will share some DPI updates with us.
So thank you all. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the things that have been happening relevant to the Office of Indian Education. So this past summer, I had the opportunity to hire an intern that would work directly with the Office of Indian Ed. That summer 2026 intern was Lydia Mansfield. Some of you may know her. Lydia serves on the National Indian Education Association board as the student rep. She also is a graduate from Purnell Sweat High School, and then recently from the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Lydia has expressed a interest in Indian education for many, many years, and so she applied to be an intern, and this year worked with me on a lot of different things logistically. We are working on a grant in partnership with the Halawasa Pony Tribe that she assisted with, and then she also took the opportunity, if you notice your agenda, our presentation slides all look a little different. Lydia wanted to revamp all of that a little bit for us just to make things a lot easier. So really appreciated her work and really hoping that we can have the same opportunity to work within a student next summer. Lydia is currently in Disney World as a part of the Disney College program. So really excited for her, but just wanted to shout out the work that she did for SACY over the summer, developing agendas, developing presentations, and just helping get the year kicked off. I did also want to announce I did receive notification from the Federal Office of Indian Education for the 2026-2027 academic year. We have 19 Title VI programs that fall under public schools or charter schools in North Carolina. Remember that the Cherokee Central Schools, which falls under the Bureau of Indian Education, also has a Title VI program. And I have not heard an update. Miss Danya or Miss Mercedes may know. The Coharie tribe did have a Title VI program, which of course would not show up on my list, but we do still communicate with them. So excited about that. We also are still going strong with the Sand Hills Regional Indian Education Collaborative and actually had a town hall session this week. Our vision is that we want to revamp what tribal consultation looks like, and our goal is truly to strive towards ongoing and meaningful. So we brought the tribal communities and Title VI programs together so that we could have a beginning of the year tribal consultation, informal conversation, and that was an amazing meeting. Thank you to those that participated, and we will continue having those monthly meetings. I also had our first collaborative conversations with Title VI this week, where we delved into some issues with Infinite Campus, got some problem solving done, and we'll continue to have those monthly meetings as well, where we have topics and we can discuss various opportunities to improve our Title VI program connections to both tribal communities and then also public school units. What I'm looking forward to is many of you have heard about NC College Connect. I had them present twice this week, and I do want to give a shout out to Stephen, who brought up the opportunity to share NC College Connect directly with American Indian families. Targeted for juniors and seniors. So he and I are going to work on that presentation. I do want to give you a quick heads up of what this means. NC College Connect, can share separately with you all, is an opportunity for direct admission to college for high school students. I will say that we are on a timeline for that. And what that looks like is that our students will be receiving that direct admissions notification. So our current seniors will receive that notification September 15th in their CFNC account. Leslie, what does that mean that I need you to do? If you are having any parent meetings, if you are working with students, please ensure that they have an up-to-date CFNC account. They can log into it and let them know that they will be getting direct admission information via that account. They will also get it mailed to them, and we don't want them to think that is a spam letter. But I will share all of that information with you all. But if you can please note that September 15th, and if you are meeting with parents, family, students, I'm happy to send you over slides so that you have some talking points around that. I'm also going to be developing a calendar of events. What I've noticed is that there's a lot of grant opportunities, a lot of scholarships, a lot of tribal events that you all want information about. And I typically send them, I try to send them in bulk emails, but I do think a standing calendar of events would be a lot more helpful so that you can have an at-a-glance look. So that is forthcoming, as well as website updates. As you all know, this past year, accessibility did an entire revamp because of legislative mandates. And so we've had a lot of changes on our website based on accessibility. So I'm continuing to work on those as we continue throughout the year. I'm really excited about the Indian Education Summit. You all should have received an invite for that. You're going to get breakout time for that today, but we have reserved UNCP for that event. So really excited about the Indian Education Summit, which will happen February 19th. I will need all hands on deck for that. As an Office of One, your support is really important on that day, so please make sure you make plans to be there. And then, of course, the SACE report update. I will share with you that we are starting to work on that report a lot earlier, as in right now. So I'm sending over data validation information now in preparation for the September release of academic achievement data, so that we can start the process of the SACE report a little bit earlier and also have some of that information prepared and ready to go for the February American Indian Education Summit. So thank you, Chair, for that opportunity to present. Any questions for me? All right.
I don't have a question, Dr. Leslie, but I'll just say after our College Connect meeting on Tuesday, I spoke with several of our seniors, and none of them were aware what College Connect was. Most of my seniors last year didn't know what it was, so just putting that out there to those of y'all who work with seniors, know seniors, have seniors of your own. This is a huge opportunity that gets them into all these colleges without an application, so that they just don't know about yet. So want to make sure our American Indian students know about this. Ms. Danya, I see your comment. Leslie just wanted to point out that. Let's see.
I had a question, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Leslie, a lot of the community that's heard about the textbook commission being dissolved has really been concerned about that. So I was wondering if you have any information on that bill that was passed.
I do not, Miss Dorothy, and I'm wondering, Dr. Olivia, do you know the plan? The last I heard was just that it was no longer in existence, but I did not hear about a follow-up plan for vetting textbooks. Do
Yeah.
you know anything about that, Dr.
Well,
Oxendine?
Ms. Yates, that's a very good question. I don't have any updated information on the commission except to say it's definite that it is gone, and it's definite that there is no plan presently to talk about anything to replace it, whether it's a restructured commission or the same. It's just gone. It's just a mute subject right now in the General Assembly. I think it had lived past its days. It probably had been in place more than 40 years. It was an expensive commission to operate because the membership count was extreme. It might have been up to 30, 40, 50 people. And then then the money had to support small advisory committees and study groups. And so when you put the total number of the commission plus those kind of arms out from the commission, it may have been close to 70, 75 people. We touched on the topic last month at State Board. I did not ask a question because we kind of fleeted to a different item on the agenda, but I, I still have an interest in knowing how will books be selected, screened, reviewed at the local level. There's got to be some structure, some committee, something. That won't be a commission, that's too broad, but maybe a council of 20, 30 people made up of parents and others that will take on the responsibility of screening, reviewing, studying, and selecting textbooks. I'll add this piece to the discussion. My concept of a textbook, which is an old concept, is a hard book that has a table of content and an index in the back and chapters. That idea of a textbook is gone. So much of that has been replaced with digital resources and soft resources. So,
And Dr. Oxendine, I don't mean to interrupt, but Stacy, who's also with DPI, did make a good point, and I forgot to make this connection, Miss Dorothy. There is a move where we talk more about, we call it HQIM, high quality instructional materials. And I will tell you that that move aligns with what Dr. Oxendine is sharing, that it's no longer the hard copy textbook that we're thinking about, but transitioning to encouraging districts and providing them resources to develop and cite high quality instructional material. And there are a lot of information about that, but I will follow up with Dr. Christy Day about that process and ensuring that I have that for the next meeting.
yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Leslie, because that raises an important point. I think it's probably going to be more important that SACE and IEA directors and staff pay attention to materials at the local level, because there's a stronger possibility that the story about the American Indian and our presence in materials will probably be something we can't guarantee as much now as in the past with that commission in place. So
That was, excuse me, that was my concern. Is, it's fine to move along with the high quality instructional materials, but let's carry along the input of our Native Americans having some kind of say in reviewing the materials and making recommendations, to make sure that we are included with correct information.
Good point. I'll keep an eye on that and raise some questions at the next state board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Dorothy. In case it's helpful, I reached out to our director of literacy or ELA with our school district and asked if I could be on our local review committee for our curriculum. So that might be an opportunity for those of you at the local level wanting to provide some input. Reach out to your academic central office folks, make a connection and see if you can support them. All right. So thank you for bringing that up. All right. Next, we've got Mr. Greg Richardson, who is here to give us some updates from the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs. Mr. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Mr. Bell, and thank you for the invitation, and Leslie, to present today and make a couple of updates regarding our work at the Commission of Indian Affairs. And Stephen, first of all, I wanted to echo the sentiments that has already been echoed here in this meeting, and congratulating you for your new position over at the North Carolina Indian Heritage Commission. I think that's a very good fit for you, and I do know that there's some long faces in Greensboro now in the Indian Ed program over that way. There's some people sad that you've left, but they're also happy that you've landed in a place where you can still contribute to this work. So secondly, I wanted to just say to Dr. Leslie and Dr. Olivia Oxendine that, the work that you do at SACE is very, very important. And Olivia, your work on the State Board of Education is very important. It's very important to have a voice at that table. And I just wanted to know that there's a lot of folks that really appreciate you committing your timing and energy over the years to be part of the state board, and giving us that opportunity to have a native voice in education at that level. And Leslie, I wanted to say something too about your efforts in terms of your leadership and your work with the Indian Youth Conference, the NAO Conference. This year, I think, was an excellent conference. You had a good number of students there. The agenda for that conference was just off the chain. I really think that is probably one of your better Indian Youth Conferences that we've had in North Carolina. Certainly with the turnout, was spectacular. Choosing a campus, Campbell University, that's easy to maneuver, easy for our students to get in and out of there, as well as our leaders, and also for providing an opportunity for Secretary Esparza to be a part of that agenda. He was very excited about coming down and being invited to be part of that agenda. So now to some of the updates. You know that we have a state budget now, and it's been a long time coming, but we've got a good budget. Of course, it doesn't serve all of our needs because, everybody had to give up something in this budget. But what we do know is that we did get our funding back in place. And something that's kind of unique and different this time around is the fact that the Waccamaw Siouan was able to get some direct funding out of that budget, which we have not seen in many years as far as one of our tribes getting direct funding out of a state budget. And also, which was really rewarding, was to see so many things funded for Robertson County. $24 million out of that budget went to efforts in Robertson County, the University of North Carolina, with the new effort there in terms of a new facility on campus. So, these are really great things that are happening in our state. And these are things that are happening because we have so many people like you all who are working in tandem to make sure that there's this voice at the state level, this voice to echo the needs of Indian education, the needs of our people. Our commission meets on the 24th in Greensboro at the Guilford Native Complex. So we'll be going over there for our annual meeting. Now, this is going to be a historic meeting because we're going to be swearing in a newly recognized tribe, the Catawba Nation of North Carolina. So Chief Harris and Assistant Chief Leach will be sworn in. They have decided that they will take on those seats themselves. is representing the Catawba around the commission table. So this is history again, because we now have 3 federally recognized tribes serving on our commission. So we're looking forward to bigger and better things at the state level. Although we know that there's still going to be some pull and tug here and there as it goes in Indian affairs, and we just deal with that. But having the Catawba there, having the Eastern Band, Lumbee at the table, with all the resources that these tribes are able to command, is really something I think we all need to be proud of, and that we're working together. I know many of you have colleagues out in some other states where the relationship between the state and our tribes or their tribes is really not that great. And oftentimes I'll have people to comment at some of the national meetings, NCAI and other meetings that I have with some of the national leaders, and they wonder how we're able to do this. And, you know, it's not an easy work to get everybody working together, keep them working together. But we have a reputation in North Carolina, a long-standing reputation of doing that. So that's very positive for our state. It's very positive for our Indian people in North Carolina. So it's good that we're able to live through a period of time in history that we're seeing so many great things happening that our forefathers worked so hard to see happen and didn't get to see those things fall into place. So the swearing-in ceremony will be taking place at the annual meeting Friday, September the 4th. And we have 10 new and returning members to our commission. So the three new members will be Brian Harris, Chief of the Catawba, Patricia Leach, Assistant Chief, and Aaron Butler, who is representative of the Lumbee tribe, new member coming on board. All of the rest will be returning members. The tribes and urban organizations have elected to send them back to the commission. So we're pleased to have that in play. I wanted to make a comment or two about the textbook commission. The commission's education committee met on the 19th, and there was a lengthy discussion about that. And I won't go into all the details about that because Ms. Dorothy and others here today have already talked about that. But the center questions that came up at the meeting, how will the books now be selected for our schools? And then how will students be able to get access, to textbooks? And the other one was, has there been any effort to maybe facilitate an effort so that the communities will know how the books are going to be selected in the future? So I just wanted to get that out there, let you know that is probably going to be a discussion at the meeting coming up on Friday, September the 4th. And that will be coming out of the education committee that is headed up by Dr. Michael Lambert. And the other education related item that was discussed at length too is the American Indian Scholarship Fund. We are aware that fund is decreasing tremendously. And that fund is, generated by the sale of and renewal of the American Indian license plate in North Carolina. The numbers are really falling off. And one of those factors, of course, would have been the Eastern Band of Cherokee, which got into legislation, their own tribal license plate. So now there's a question about what do we do to sustain that fund and what can be done to generate more funding for that particular effort. It's $1,000 for a student who's eligible, and that certainly makes a difference for a family or parents who's trying to get their child into college and keep them in college. So we want to see what can be done to try to make sure that fund continues and that it is increased. So there's been some discussion with the leadership at the Triangle Community Foundation about how we might approach some effort to try to spur additional interest in that license plate or spur additional interest in people maybe working out a mechanism through which private donations and donations from corporate America, donations from foundations could be channeled into that fund. So it is a little tricky because it has some legislative parameters that restrict how this fund can be administered. So just wanted to let you all as education leaders know a little bit about that, and know that we're going to be talking about that a little bit at our commission meeting coming up on Friday. Good to know about the Indian Education Summit that's coming up, Dr. Leslie. And I wanted to just echo the fact that I'm so glad to see that happening. And I wanted to echo the fact that we want to support that effort. So let us know how we might be able to support that. You know, there's some opportunities for sponsorships. Like we did with the youth conference, we sponsored 20 students to the youth conference, and would have liked to have been able to sponsor a few more, but due to budget and those kind of things, we're not able to do that. So those are just some general things I wanted to announce this morning. Just wanted to say too that we do have our deputy position filled now, and it's Logan Jacobs, and Logan comes to us with a strong background in education. She's coming in from UNC Chapel Hill. She has a master's degree from UNC Chapel Hill, and also she is working towards her doctorate. So we're pleased and very proud to have her on board with us. So are there any questions, anything that you all have in mind that you'd like to ask of me at this time? Okay. Final point I do want to make is that we're approaching the 2030 U.S. Census, and we are now having some preliminary meetings to generate some discussions about the 2030 U.S. Census. And what the census advocates are telling us right now, based on what we're seeing and what's floating out from the U.S. Census Bureau, that there may be some other challenges in terms of getting an accurate count of our population. And so just wanted to let you know that that's another component, kind of education related. There is a plan for or meeting coming up where we're going to meet next month with some of the key players in terms of the census, and we'll be keeping you informed in terms of what we learn, keeping you informed about what strategies we might be taking in terms of making sure that our population is not going into an undercount situation. So again, thank you all for what you do, and appreciate this opportunity to make some comments today.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. We always appreciate your support from the commission. So thank you for your time this morning. We look forward to seeing you on September 4th.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thank you much. You all too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Next up is one of our own, Miss Candace, who's going to give us an update and highlight from her Title VI Indian Ed program. So Candace, it's all yours.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Dr. Leslie asked me to do a Title VI program highlight. And so I just wanted to share some fun things that we did do over the summer. If you don't do or currently do a summer camp, I encourage you to maybe find those funds or get some sponsors or even write a grant to do a summer camp. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work to begin with, but once you get there, you just see the kids and how they grow in that short period of time. So I'll just share about our summer camp, and then I do have some other highlights. So you can go to the next slide. Our summer camp, this is a picture of us at the Botanical Gardens, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So a lot of this is photos because I just love sharing. You can't tell summer camp without just seeing it. And so I'll talk about everything we did, but you're just going to see a lot of the photos. So you can just keep on going. The theme of our summer camp, this was our 4th year, and it's been STEM, culture, and agriculture because they all just tie in together. Everything that we do centers around those themes. And so this year we did have 27 students. We allot for 30, and then sometimes some drop out, but we allot for 27 students, grades 3 through 6. We had 5 different tribes represented, and it was 3 days. This year we are aiming to push it to 4 days. And my ladies, my staff is like, by day 3, my tongue's hanging out. I'm so tired, but the kids are begging to stay. So I think we're going to try to make that work as long as the funding lines up. So you can keep on going. I'm going to share a lot about our partners this year. So one of our great partners was with Fire through ACES that we got connected with Miss Raven Dow Stanley. And so my staff and I went through the FIRE training, which is Fostering Indigenous Innovation and Robotics Education. And so we did a FIRE lesson, and the students was able to use these STEM kits, climate action kits. They learned a lesson. We talked about the microbits, which is the coloring sheet that you see. Raven designed that just to help students understand what exactly is a microbit and how does it work. And she kind of put a native twist on it. So the kids enjoyed learning about that and then getting to design their microbits. You can go to the next slide. And as you can see, the kids are working together. We use laptops to make our climate action kits work, and the kids designed a windmill that actually worked, that spun. And we went through a lesson with them, and we talked about how the importance of windmills and windmills in different communities or on different lands and different types of renewable energy. So the kids really enjoyed that lesson. You can go to the next slide. The next partnership that we have is with the Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council. So this is through Fayetteville Parks and Rec, or the city of Fayetteville, and they have amazing opportunities for students. If you don't have a youth council in your community, or if you don't know if you have one, check with your local Parks and Rec. If they don't have a youth council, sometimes they have youth programs where students can get involved in being student leaders in their community. So for Fayetteville Parks and Rec, they have what's called CIT, which is counselors in training. And so if your Parks and Rec has summer programs, then those students run the summer programs, and they're called counselors in training. They get paid for the summer. They get volunteer hours. There's just so many benefits. And so I have a great partnership with them because one of my former employees, Ms. Tashika, she moved over to the youth council advisor position. And so she brought her youth to us, and we did team building games. They talked about student leadership in the youth council as well as at their schools and how they can get involved, and just talked about their life experiences, challenges they faced and how they overcame those challenges. So it was a really great conversation for our students, and just an encouragement, because a lot of the youth council students, they're minorities. Some of them are also American Indian students that came through our program, and now they are doing amazing things within not just our school system, but in the county and the cities as well. So I really love that partnership. You can go to the next one. If you don't know, or if you've ever been to Home Depot on a Saturday, or you've seen Saturday crafts at Home Depot, they are really great. They're super easy. It's a kit that comes already prepackaged. All you honestly need is either a hammer or a screwdriver. We didn't even use the wood glue because, I mean, they say wood glue, but ours held together pretty good. So we were able to do a crop duster, and these were donated by Home Depot. They gave us everything we needed, even the paint. So this might be something that you can reach out to them, let them know you're part of a education program. And there's several different kits that we received. Some of them were the Home Depot truck. You can build your own like transfer Home Depot truck with the wheels and everything, and they work. These were crop duster kits, and we talked about what a crop duster does and the importance of crop dusters in agricultural communities, especially when there's a rain shortage or a drought. And so the kids really enjoyed just getting hands-on with the thing. Some of them never worked with tools before. So that was a really great activity that we did. The next one is we did do painting and pottery. They painted either an arrowhead or a turtle. And as you can see, they turned out really colorful, really fun. And we talked about the importance of both, finding arrowheads in our communities and what they were used for, as well as the importance of turtles in our communities, as well as just in American Indian communities across. We did do pottery, but as you can see, there's no picture because all of our hands were full of clay and we made pinch pots. So by the time I got finished, I said, I did not take a picture because we were all completely covered in clay. So nobody wanted to touch their phones. But the kids were learned about pinch pots and the history behind those and how we still do those today in our communities. The next activity was jewelry making. This one was really fun. As you can see, these necklaces are beautiful. They literally could sell them right now. And this is something that the kids were like, I'm gonna tell my mom to take me and get some jewelry so I can start crafting and beading or jewelry making. It's a way for them to generate revenue. Once you learn a craft, it's yours forever. Some students who have learned this, like my niece, she literally is now selling beaded necklaces to fund her. She's a competitive dancer. So now she's selling beaded necklaces to fund her dance endeavors because she's a competitive dancer and she travels throughout the state. So I just love once you teach somebody something, they'll never forget that and they can use it for the rest of their lives. And like I said, I love these necklaces. I was trying to keep some of them. I said, hey, you're going to let me keep your necklace? They're like, no, I'm taking it home to my mom. I'm taking it home to whoever. They were so proud of them, but they were beautiful. And we did do 2 field trips. So the first field trip was to the Lumbee Culture Center. And we got to meet with the Lumbee Culture team, Mr. Reggie, Mr. John, and Miss Taylor, who was the reigning Miss Lumbee at the time, and Mr. Brad. So we got to talk about stickball, not only talk about it, but we played stickball, and you'll see a few pictures of this later on as well. We got to see the Lumbee Powwow Arena, the Lowry Home, that's right across at the amphitheater, the wigwam, as you can see the students standing there, and they also got to go inside the wigwam to see what it was like inside and what all they did inside and outside of the wigwam. They showed tools and ways of life. You'll see like a bow and arrow, and they showed different tools they use. We also did a nature walk and talked about the different plants, the native plants. They have wild strawberries growing, wild blueberries. They've planted a community garden that they gathered those plants or those fruits and vegetables for the community. They give out sweet potatoes and collards to the community for free. So we were able to do to share all of that information with our students. You can go to the next slide as well. There's some more pictures of us at the Culture Center. And while we were at the Culture Center, we ran into Hoke County Indian Education, and they were on the Robeson County tour with Mr. Kenny. And he does a tour of Robeson County, a historical tour. So that was fun to just see everybody really utilizing these resources that we have in the county. And then we did a picnic for lunch at the Culture Center. So that was really fun. The other field trip that we did was to the Cape Fear Botanical Gardens, and that is literally like 2 miles from our office. So it was right there. Some of the kids never knew that it was even there. They've never been to it. They have a very interactive children's garden. They have beautiful artwork. There's a massive playground that you can it's wood, and so you can climb up it. It was just a great experience for them. Some of them did not even know this was right here in their home community. And so as you can see, the kids are just exploring, and even on the next page you'll see a little bit more. They had water play, they had everywhere you went, we did do some plant identification there as well and talked about the different plants and the butterfly garden that they had. And that was really fun. They have a group rate. I think it was only like $3 a student. The Lumbee Culture Center, it was free to go there. So just giving you guys some ideas if you're near the areas of things that we did for our summer camp. Yeah, so that's summer camp. I wanted to pause if anybody has any questions about summer camp specifically. I am going to just chat just a second about some other new things that we're doing this year. Okay, so something new, just as a highlight, my staff, we have been given access to Branching Minds, which is a platform that Cumberland County Schools is using to track our students. So they don't just only see their grades in Infinite Campus, but this is a platform that the county is using to track, and you can go to the next slide. It kind of shares a little bit more attendance data, growth reports, behavior data. And it gives you a picture of a student, like if they're kind of moving into the red, if they're in the yellow, or if they're in the green. And what they've allowed us to do is I've created a class. So all my students are flagged as 506, and then they are put inside my class, and all my ladies can see our student data as a program. And I think I'm really excited about it, and we're going to do some more training with it. But it's just for us to really be able to more closely follow our students to see what areas they really are in need of, whether that be in behavior or academic support, attendance. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that. If that's something that your school district is using, then ask to see if you can get access for your staff or you to be able to see your student data more closely other than just an Infinite Campus, so that you can get a better holistic picture of your students.
Candace, I do have a quick question, if I might.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? This is fascinating. So this branch is it's compatible with Infinite Campus, I suppose.
Yes, it pulls data from Infinite Campus. So when I log into my Rapid Identity, and then within Rapid Identity, I think it's in Clever. So
Okay.
there's a platform called Clever, and inside Clever is Branching Minds.
I see. So let me ask this question. You said that you've created a class with your 506. I guess 506 is the name of the class. This 506 this kids who have 506.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So would that be K-12, or do you have it divided out?
So within that class, I can make subgroups. So I can do my elementary subgroup, my middle subgroup, and my high school. What I really like about this is you can track your communication with these students. So if you had a student conference, which my ladies do student conferences, then they can say, student conference on this day, we talked about, scholarships and NCNEO. Or if you made a phone call home because that student is showing red for attendance, then you can make a note that says Indian Education spoke with parent about student attendance. The school can see all your interactions. So when the school has a meeting, they'll say, oh, we see where Indian Ed actually spoke with you too. So it helps us with communicating that way. I don't have to communicate with 87 different schools what my ladies did. The school can see, oh, Miss Connie, who's one of my ladies, talked to little Johnny's mom about his attendance as well.
And so you can you generate reports like let's say you can generate a full report from all of these categories for one student.
Yes. Yeah, so that one report will show behavior, attendance, and then the tier level report, whether anything for MTSS.
I am totally fascinated by this. I have not seen anything like it. And I just applaud Cumberland County for whatever, maybe purchasing it, but this is going to help your staff. It will be something to put in, use with parents. It has 1,000 purposes. I'm impressed beyond words. Good for you.
Thank you. I think this may have replaced another platform that I was not as informed about. But when they did this transition, the lady who is over it, she was really intentional about making sure I was a part of that. So I was very grateful.
Good for you for going at it hard.
Yeah, and we still have a lot to learn, but as long as we have access, we can get in there and play around with it to know, to make sure we know what we need to know about it. So we're really excited about that. And then just a few more updates or information. I shared this. You can go to the next slide. I shared this information at our collaboration meeting, but just some things about this school year. These are our parent night dates. And so we are partnering with Project Create through the Lumbee Tribe for a STEM night, as well as Native Forward. Krista Moyd is coming to represent Native Forward and those scholarships. And so we'll have a scholarship information with our students. I would love, and I think Dr. Leslie's already going to share that, but the College Connect information, I would love to make sure we share that also at that session with our high school students. We have a Native Craft Expo, which I'm really excited about for American Indian Heritage Month. And so the families will get a chance to pick 2 different crafts, and then we'll do an hour each, and they can go into a room and learn a craft, and then we'll switch. So they'll have like a little craft fair that they'll do for November. And then we'll have a college and career night in February, and then our final parent meeting in April for test prep, summer camps, and our town hall. And then the last bit of information is just some other, we host our yearly CCS powwow, which is an exhibition powwow for 4th graders. Our feather ceremony will be on May 4th. And this year, Indian Ed Summer Camp is going to be June 1 through 4. We will attend regular NCNAO meetings as well as the summer conference. And we do plan to attend the ACES Science Fair again this year. We have some students that are really excited and have already started their science projects, which I'm really proud of them for taking their self-starters. And so they contacted me this summer and said, I'm going to the science fair. What do I need to do? So I'm excited to see what those science projects look like. And just a PSA, I have 2 open TA positions. One is full-time and one is part-time, and that will be working directly with Indian Ed. Those are listed on the website, the Tala Ed website. So if you know anyone that would like to apply, please share that with them. And I do have the links to those if I need to send them. And the last announcement is one of our great partners, the American Indian Society of North Carolina. They are based out of Cumberland County. They're going to be doing a 5K as well as the pancake breakfast, which they usually do to raise money for scholarships. Last year, they raised, I want to say it was about $13,000, and they gave 9 students scholarships, and they presented them at our feather ceremony. So I hope to help partner with them to raise even more this year for our American Indian students. So thank y'all. If you have any questions, can let me know. Oh yeah, and I put that picture in there so y'all can see that I played stickball and I dominated also. Stickball is really fun. I'm a competitive person. So I told the kids I was not taking any mercy on them, and I had to show them. I couldn't tell them. I just had to show them. But they loved it. I think they were addicted when we left. They were like, we want to play stickball. So one of our culture classes that hosts culture class at Stony Point on Thursdays, there's a grassy area behind there, and Mr. Reggie has offered to bring the stickball equipment so they can play a game of stickball. So I think that would be really great to do. And I'm in the process of trying to get that planned out so we can do that before it gets too cool. But I think we'll have some great weather this fall to do that. So I'll have to share pictures when we do that activity.
I don't have a question of you, Candace. I just want to applaud you for all the hard work that you do. And now I know why so much is happening. You're competitive, so that probably plays into it. But what I wanted to do just to make this make this point for everyone to think about. I think it would be extremely amazing and maybe surprising for the State Board of Education to know at the end of the year, when your students are getting ready to move on and graduate, the total amount of scholarship money that our Indian students, our seniors, have earned, have been awarded through scholarships, and get that grand total to the state board maybe sometime in June or July after graduation. Because I've been to early in the week, I went to the Title VI collaborative meeting over in Pembroke, heard a lot about the word scholarship, kept popping up in everyone's presentations. And I'm hearing scholarships again in Candace's presentation. So I was thinking it would be fascinating to know the total amount that's awarded to our Indian students across North Carolina. It would probably be surprising and very motivational to the Indian students who are coming up from the freshman all the way through the senior year, and certainly, just very rewarding to the parents to know that. So kind of keep a track of those Indian student seniors who get scholarships and keep your own running total of that and perhaps get it into Leslie at the end of the year so that it can be presented to the State Board of Education at some point, and maybe also included in the annual SACE report. Good work, all of you. And the notes in the chat are great.
Thank you, Candace, for this presentation. If you don't mind, put your email in the context. So if anyone wants you to come teach stickball in their community, you could do that. So thank you so much for that offer. I really appreciate that. So
I was literally typing my email. Thank y'all.
No, great work. This is exciting to see. So thank you. Next up, we've got Stacy Daniel, our section chief for ELA and languages, who will be sharing an update about ELA standard course of study. Stacy, thank you so much for being here.
Sure thing. I just sent a request to share my screen because I know that we had some issues with formatting.
Yeah, let's see. Dr. Leslie.
Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, good morning. I'm really excited to be with you all this morning to provide a brief standards update for ELA. I'm Stacy Daniel. I serve as a section chief for ELA languages within the Office of Teaching and Learning under the direction of Dr. Day. And for your reference, this is the ELA team. This is the small but the mighty team that has led the work that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So that contact information is there for you if you need it. So this morning, we'll spend most of our time reviewing the major changes from our current standard course of study, as well as available resources that are available to support implementation. We'll also take a look at the planned timeline of support for these standards for this school year, and then end with some time for you to ask any questions that you might have. So we're going to take a look first at the standard course of study, the one that was adopted this past January and is scheduled to be implemented next school year, so 27-28. We're going to look at the differences from the current standards, and then more importantly, talk about why these changes are so important. So before we even jump into those, I think it's important that we always clarify the distinction between standards and curriculum. So we always talk about how, standards are those end of year or end of grade or end of course goals. They're what we want students to know and be able to do by the end of a particular grade level. And then that curriculum, by contrast, is how all those goals are achieved, and of course is determined locally. So this is just a reminder that our time today is going to focus specifically on the standards themselves. One thing that we also want to do is just reinforce the connection between the ELA standards and other important literacy initiatives across North Carolina, particularly those around the science of reading. And this is just a reminder that these are not separate initiatives or separate bodies of work, right? The science of reading is embedded in the standards and it's reflected in the evidence-based practices that are needed to teach those standards. So again, those standards are the goal. They define what students should know and be able to do. And then when educators are teaching those standards effectively, they're putting the science of reading into practice. So this connection was evident for sure in the current standard course of study, but I think the 2026 standards that we're gonna talk about today just make it more explicit. So rather than thinking about the science of reading as something additional to or separate from the standard course of study, just a reminder that the standards are where that work all comes together. So now that we kind of leveled set on a couple of those things, we'll go ahead and take a look at those changes that I mentioned earlier. So the 2026 standards are anchored by 3 fundamental principles that are interwoven throughout the standards and objectives. Again, I'll note that these principles are not new to our work. They have long guided effective ELA instruction. It's just that the 2026 standards now bring them to the forefront and just highlight their importance in the design of what is standards aligned and research-based literacy instruction. So that first principle is grade level complex text at the center of instruction. And all this really means is that students are spending the majority of class time on reading, listening to, speaking, writing texts that are appropriately complex for their grade level. One thing that we always share is that without those grade level complex texts, the standards themselves mean nothing. So these elements together are really essential for that grade level rigor. And one example I usually give to kind of help bring this all together is, you can teach literary analysis with the 3 Little Pigs, but that doesn't mean that a high schooler has mastered their standards. So that's why it's important the relationship between the two is so tight. And then centering instruction on those complex texts is just how we ensure that, of course, our students can finish their K-12 careers with the literacy abilities that correspond to what they want to do with the next phase of their lives. So the second principle is the integrated model of literacy and spiraling. And the 2026 standards just illustrate how those 4 language domains of reading, writing, speaking, and listening are interrelated and how they're mastered in integration with one another. And all this is really doing is emphasizing that literacy is not, developed by an isolated skills-based approach, that it should be interwoven. And then the last principle, the fundamental principle is variety of text. So the 2026 standards actually provide greater flexibility in the complex texts that are used for instruction. And all it really does is call for an increased variety in those texts, including multimodal texts. So it is not just, supporting their ability to build their knowledge and build their vocabulary, but it's really also preparing them for success in our, increasingly digitally driven society where, texts use several modalities and it's not just limited to static print. So to really pull this all together and understand why these principles are so fundamental to the standards, just think about it in the same way we would think about, building physical strength or weight training, right? You need a challenge, but you also need a workout that focuses on all, the necessary muscles. You need a balanced diet. Literacy works the same way. So those complex texts provide the challenge. The integrated model of reading, writing, speaking, and listening are those exercises that strengthen literacy development. And then the variety of text just provides that, that diet or that nutrition, right? Different genres, perspectives, formats that all build that knowledge and vocabulary. And then, of course, teachers really are the coaches, right? They determine students' needs and they ensure that they successfully can engage with grade level work. So one thing we like to emphasize with these fundamental principles is that, we don't build stronger readers and improve achievement by lowering the weight or lowering the challenge. We do it by helping every student successfully lift it through those principles and through the standards and objectives, which I'll talk to you about in a second. So one of the first major changes to the standards, in addition to the fundamental principles, is the standards themselves, more specifically the overall structure. So this is the current structure of our standards, the 2017 standards. There's currently 4 strands, and each of them have a set of clusters, anchor standards, grade level standards. Our current standards have many, many layers, and throughout the revision process, as well as through the PD, and then of course meetings with district leaders and charter leaders, we received a lot of feedback asking for a more streamlined structure. So in response, the writers for the standards writing team just developed a clearer, more cohesive structure that emphasizes those 3 fundamental principles that I mentioned to you earlier. So this is actually what the structure of draft 4 looks like. So now the standards only have 3 strands: the complex text strand, comprehension development with a substrand of foundational skills, and communication and writing. So as you're looking at the new strands, what is it that you notice?
Well, it's simplified.
Mm-hmm.
I think here there's a lot of overlap, whereas your current structure is definitely more like almost like building blocks that don't overlap at all.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. Anything else?
And they're intertwined.
Yes. Does anyone else want to add anything?
I don't see the cluster.
Yeah, which added another layer for sure to our current standards. So really, I think one thing that you can see, everything that you all mentioned, of course, it's a much more simplified, it's streamlined. There's a lot of duplication that was reduced. And so you can really see in this structure that complex text strand is intended to be integrated across those other 2 strands. And all that really does is reinforce that fundamental principle that I talked to you about earlier, right? That making sure that reading, writing, speaking, listening, all those skills are developed in context of one another, with complex text rather than isolation with less challenging texts. So again, just tying it all together. So if we zoom in a little bit further, you can see that each of these strands have a set of grade level standards and objectives. So it's just that the standards and the objectives are grounded in those 3 fundamental principles that we talked about earlier. So again, much more simplified. Another major change is the standard and objective format. That's probably the most obvious change. Our current standard course of study, this is a snapshot of it, and you can see that here. It only includes grade level standards. So if we're looking at the format of the 2026 standards, now you can see that there's that standard objective format. Of course, it's required by our internal procedures manual, but it also just promotes greater coherence across content areas. For a while, ELA has been one of the standard courses of study that isn't in this format. So it's also nice to see it being consistent with the other content areas, which, as you know, is a lot easier for our district leaders, but also for our elementary teachers who teach multiple content areas. It all looks similar. They can read them in a much more streamlined way. So now it's just consistent across those content areas. Another major change is that emphasis of text complexity that I mentioned to you earlier. So in the current standards, text complexity is actually addressed in Reading Standard 10. So that is one standard out of many. And it's not even the first one. So you can kind of argue that because of that, maybe it didn't give it the attention that it really warranted, or the emphasis of importance that it warranted. So now, of course, as you saw earlier, you can't avoid that. You can't avoid the complex text standard because it's its own strand now, and it's expected to be integrated across those other strands. And all that does, again, is just giving it a more consistent presence throughout the standards, which should translate into instruction. So this shift really makes complex text a more reoccurring expectation rather than a standalone one.
I have a quick question about the CW, the communication and writing.
Mhm.
Now, am I to understand that let me admit I'm confused. So text complexity. So
Mhm.
you've got CT, complex text, complex comprehension, communication, writing.
Mhm.
I don't see communication and writing. How is that? What does that have to do with the complexity of text, of a story or a piece of literature?
So the complex text strand does have a standard and a set of objectives. So with communication and writing, it's that they are talking about complex text. Because many times you have people who will walk into a classroom and it's quiet. The ELA classroom should not be a quiet one. They should be discussing complex texts. And then in terms of writing, they should be writing complex text as well. And when they're writing those complex texts, that they're using complex texts that they are reading as models of effective writing. So that's the interrelation between those. And we'll also take a look at some of the communication and writing standards in a little bit too. Another one, of course, is the foundational skill. So this was one that was definitely called for by educators in the field. Our current standards have foundational skills that only span grades K-5. The major difference with the 2026 standards is that you'll see that it now extends into grade 6-12 and also has an addition of oral language in K2. So extending, certain foundational skills through grade 12 just really aims to bridge that gap between elementary and secondary reading instruction. So we're really supporting students' comprehension as they engage with those increasingly complex texts. And those explicit oral language standards in K2 just really stems from research, which is reflecting, the critical role of oral language as the foundation for reading and writing, and a key factor in reading comprehension. Another major change is around the genres. So our current standard course of study has two major genres, literature and informational texts. Our 2026 standards now just uses the term text more broadly, just really to allow for more variety in texts that are used to teach the standards, which means more flexibility for teachers. One thing that we want to emphasize here is that, while this, allows teachers more flexibility to use traditional literary and informational texts, it also is extending or allowing them the flexibility to use more contemporary ones that may not exclusively fall into a single genre like literary or informational. You have things like, graphic novels or hybrid poetry prose works or memoirs that have, sometimes self-help elements. So this just broadens it and allows teachers to have more things to choose from in terms of those complex texts. Language and speaking and listening. So again, I think, Stephen, you had mentioned this earlier, that everything was kind of separated out in our current standards and not necessarily interwoven like someone else had said later on or earlier. But our current standards, speaking and listening and language, are currently in their own strands. And a lot of educators shared that this maybe was sending an unintended message that they were taught in isolation rather than in integration with one another. So the new structure, as well as the integration of language and speaking and listening, aims to kind of help solve that. So with it being integrated, now they're integrated in all three of those strands, so that it just emphasizes that students are applying those skills when they're comprehending texts, but also when they're producing texts. With grammar and conventions is another major change. The current standard course of study has continuas for grammar and conventions. And we heard a lot from the field that a lot of educators were actually just skipping over this because they weren't quite sure how to read it. So we went ahead and did away with that structure and went with something that was more clear and organized with a clear progression, so that students are reinforcing and applying what they learned in previous grades, but they're also still building on them with new skills. And all these standards and objectives do is just make them more explicit and easier to interpret, and then of course apply to instruction. with the text types, so this is in our communication and writing. One of the last major changes was just around the production of spoken and written text. So the current standards address these text types, so opinion and argument, informative and explanatory, and narrative as an expectation just for writing. But now the 2026 standards is expanded to include spoken texts, but also to include, additional text types to provide more flexibility for instruction. So instead of just opinion and argument, we now have, persuasive and grades 6-12 to include things like reviews and speeches and editorials, in addition to argument writing. And then, of course, now they also include expository writing in 6-12. So it includes things like, definition writing, process writing, classification, in addition to informative and explanatory writing. And then lastly, the standards now include poetry and descriptive writing, K-12, to include things like spoken word or diaries or storytelling, in addition to narrative. So the expansion of this is really just to allow students to produce more, like a variety of more written and spoken texts, promote, those cross-disciplinary connections, and of course apply to different content areas as well. So this is just a summary slide for you, just so that you can use it as a reference to see the major changes at a glance, if you need to refer to that later. But I realized I shared quite a bit with you, and it's really just because I have quite a short amount of time to go through quite a lot of information. But the biggest shift here is that the standards are giving us a clearer picture of how literacy develops over time from kindergarten through high school. There's less duplication, there's more explicit objectives so that teachers have clear targets while still having room to make intentional instructional decisions based on their students, the text, and of course, their local contexts. So that all those changes, we hope, aims to deliver these three things that you see here. So we, of course, weren't going to facilitate all of those changes without providing resources to the field, because that is extremely important. So to prepare them for the 27-28 school year, there are actually a number of resources that have been developed and are currently available. The first one is the communications toolkit. This was actually released when the standards were adopted in January. And this really just aims to assist districts and schools in keeping their stakeholders informed. So it has email templates, it has a slide deck that provides an overview of the standards that very similar to what we just went over, but it actually includes notes for anybody who's facilitating this locally. It has a list of resources that should be shared. There's a FAQ, there's a high-level timeline. Essentially, any need to know information can be found in this resource. The next resource is the unpacking, which I'm sure most of the field is familiar with. And all it really does is it breaks down the standards and objectives and to help stakeholders understand them better. It's got clarification. It has done all the unpacking for teachers already. Before, we used to provide PD on how to unpack the standards. We've taken that lift off of educators and done the unpacking for them so they don't have to do the guesswork. There is a glossary that defines the terms in the standards. There are question stems, sentence frames, classroom considerations, and of course, supplemental resources. These are really, really comprehensive resources. Essentially, what we have done is all of the commonly used resources that the field said that were, their tried and true resources that they constantly go to. We took them, we revamped them, and consolidated them to align with the 2026 standards. And now they're in one single primary resource so that teachers don't have to go to, a zillion places to find what they need. The next resource is the crosswalk, and in that just outlines the differences between the current standard course of study and the new standard course of study, and it's organized side by side. It has a 2-column format so that you can compare those revisions by standard and by grade level. One thing that I did want to mention about this next resource, it is included the unpacking, but we also pulled it out and provided as a a separate resource as well, in a printable version as well as an interactive version. Many of the terms that you'll see here actually have citations. And the reason for that is we use, reputable third-party organizations, research, experts, to define the terms found in the glossary. And the whole intent behind this was that if we want to build and ensure a shared understanding of the standards, it's important that our language and our discussions around literacy reflect and align with the terminology that's used in research and used by experts. So hopefully using this glossary, all stakeholders, both internal at our agency, but also external, like the field, can use this resource to promote common and consistent language. Another resource the last resource that I'll share with you is the highlighted vertical progression. And this is just a K-12 view of each standard and objective. So it offers a side-by-side look of the K-12 standards and objectives. The humor in that the progression is presented horizontally rather than vertically is not lost on us. But the reason why is so that you can really see that overarching focus or that through line for each set of objectives. One thing that I'll also note too is for our grammar and convention standards and objectives, there is a mapping portion that kind of just shows teachers when specific skills are introduced, when they're continued, and when they are reinforced across grade levels. So hopefully this resource is something that can be used by PSUs to guide PLC discussions or any vertical alignment team meetings. So all of these resources that I shared with you can be found in our virtual implementation kit, which is a repository that houses all of our standards related resources. And of course, when additional resources become available, we will add them here. So we always encourage everyone to just check back often for updates. And the last thing that I just want to share with you is just the timeline of what the work has been and then where we are now. And what to expect for this school year. So this is what has been accomplished to date. All of the resources I shared with you today were released in March of this year. April is where our internal PD as an agency kicked off to make sure that our agency was providing coherent and consistent support in relation to the standards. And then this past summer, we actually provided initial implementation PD to PSU implementation teams in all 8 regions of the state, including charters and institutes of higher ed. And then this month, we've continued to prepare for professional learning for this school year, and then continued providing PD for internal colleagues to just make sure that everyone, despite whatever role that they have the knowledge and the expertise that they need to provide accurate and aligned support. So this is our timeline for this school year. This is what to expect. We have a webinar series for educators in the field, as well as quarterly leaders meetings where we'll be focusing on implementation based on role. We also will be adding new resources to our unpacking documents, particularly in the foundation skills area. So we can definitely expect to see that in an addition in November, but then we also will add our parent caregiver guide in April, which will be available in the spring. Let's see, let me go over the time. That's all that I had to share with you today. I did want to give you some time to ask any questions, and if you had any questions that maybe came after today, that you knew who to contact if you had that, if you wanted to follow up.
Stephen, I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may.
Yes.
Stacy, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm always amazed when I see a presentation on our standards, because they're very complicated, but they're getting better in terms of being streamlined especially for beginning teachers who need things rather straightforward. Earlier today, we talked about the elimination of the textbook commission, and specifically the implications of that no longer existing, and what that might mean in terms of making sure the American Indian story, sensitivity to the American Indian culture is still very present across the curricula in all areas of it, well, specifically in our reading curricula, our social studies curricula, all areas for that matter. So can you, from the standpoint of English language arts and more specifically, let's say reading and literature, those areas, can you, is your division, your section, talking about making sure that locals at the local level, because I'm sure most of the responsibility will be shifted to the local in terms of book selection, book review, materials review, and what have you. Are you sensitive to helping the districts in making sure that they're sensitive to cultural groups such as the Native American?
I wouldn't say that was specifically we specifically haven't called out anything specific to American Indian, but I will say that part of the process that we've definitely supported and are continuing to support is the selection of high quality texts. And part of that is understanding, of course, accuracy in whatever the text that you've selected, whatever topic it is that it's focused on, but then also considering the reader and task. So really considering the students in your classroom and really making sure that you're selecting texts that are not just challenging, but are also reflective of your local student population. So that would be where they would definitely have to consider, okay, you know, my students comprise of American Indian students and also multilingual learners, and how do I choose texts that speak to those particular groups of students.
So when you're out in the districts or in the regions, you do have discussions with educators on those topics.
We have a specific rubric for teachers to use as they're selecting complex texts, we have some specific questions about students that you should reflect on before selecting a text.
Okay. That's got to stay uppermost.
Well, with the complex text strand being at the forefront, it is because that is like the crux of everything now.
That was going to be my question too. Just thinking about the graphic you shared, that's kind of the like foundation of your whole thing, of the whole, restructuring is thinking about complex texts. So I was going to see, so is that in the toolkit in terms of like how to help teachers select complex text? That was kind of my question of like, are there examples of that, or what sort of guidance do we have there?
So that is actually all now in the unpacking document. We did have it separate for the current standard course of study, but it's all now in one place in the unpacking document. So when you go to the standard under the complex text strand, there's rubrics to help you identify all three measures of text complexity, including Lexile, but more importantly, those qualitative measures, and of course the reader and task that we were talking about earlier. And then there's also considerations in the unpacking document of other things that you should consider in terms of text selection, and of course then how students interact with those texts. So they're all in the unpacking document.
Got it.
And resources that are linked in there.
Stacy, let me ask another question. In terms of parents and their understanding or awareness of standards, they really would certainly not get as deep as a classroom teacher. But what would be important? What would be most important for parents to know about the standards?
I think any of the communication around the fundamental principles is probably low-hanging fruit to make sure that we include in any of the communications or in the parent caregiver guide that we plan on developing this spring, because really those are the things as a parent that they should be looking for. Are my students are engaging with challenging text? Because I will say we still have a lot of districts who are using leveled readers or texts that are just not complex enough for the grade that they're teaching. And the variety of texts, I mean, we still have classrooms that are only, reading lengthy novels, but not reading articles or learning how to read other types of texts. And then, of course, that last one of the integrated model of literacy, of parents understanding like my student should not just be hyper focused on reading complex texts, but they should also be talking about them in class. They should be writing about them in class. And they should definitely be listening to them too.
So this is the kind of information, especially with parents targeted and building their awareness and giving them some practical knowledge around the standards, because standards are very complicated, that our Title VI directors would probably benefit from knowing more about that parent manual that you're talking about, because there is a parent advisory committee that makes up the Title VI Indian Education Project. So workshops or meetings with parents so that they're in the know about the changes in the standards through that manual that you're referring to would be very important.
That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I do have another question, comment, idea. I'm thinking about, a potential partnership here between SACE with Dr. Leslie, possibly our American Heritage Commission, about creating some sort of like resource or database that aligns current literature that we have, both like spoken text, but also reading texts that are aligned to the standard course of study, but that are specific American Indian history and culture. I don't know if that's something that you would be able to share, or if that would come from us. I'm just kind of throwing out some ideas here. Would love to see that happen.
So because we're local control, we would not be able to, like, for instance, if you have a list for us to, essentially copy and paste that and put that in an unpacking document, even though we would love to do that. Right. But we can certainly promote and link out to wherever you are housing them as a place to go. That is always something that would be really, really helpful, because teachers are always looking for what texts they can teach.
Okay, great. Maybe I'll talk to Dr. Leslie and we can be in communication about that.
Yeah. And our team is also happy to support if you're reviewing text and you need someone to look for that alignment or look for that level of complexity for the grade, just from a standards perspective. We're happy to do that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. We'll definitely be in touch. Yeah, any other questions from anybody else? Well, Dr. Stacy, thank you so much for joining us. And shout out to you and your team for all the work y'all are doing to create some stronger alignment and, to create just some more supports for our teachers. So we really appreciate your time and all the work y'all have done.
Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. So we've been going for about 2 hours, so we're going to take a break here in just a second. What we're going to do, we're going to pivot if this is okay with everyone. We've only got a little bit left in our agenda, so rather than take an hour-long lunch break and then come back, we're just going to do about a 15-minute break, come back at 12:15, and then we should be able to finish, what do you think, Dr. Leslie, 30, 45 minutes?
Yeah, I would say if we can finish, the last portion is just to do our committee breakouts. We do have to do nominations and voting for chair and vice chair. So if you can take a part of your 15 minutes to get any final nominations in, that end process will move rather quickly. So if we can take a break to 12:15 and we will come back and do quick committee breakouts, I have instructions for that.
That sounds great. And just to clarify, so the chair nomination, that is you facilitate all of the SACE meetings and present at the state board. Vice chair nominations would be to basically step in whenever the chairperson is not available. So in case you have questions, feel free to message Dr. Leslie or I, but we'll see y'all back at 12:15. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a good break. We're gonna jump into our breakout groups, our subcommittee breakouts. Before we do, here is how we've been divided up between the SACE report and the SACE Summit. Leslie, do you want to give any context about what is most helpful? What do you need from us during this
Sure.
time?
So the link to this presentation is on your agenda. So if you need to bring this slide up, when you go into I have assigned you to breakout rooms and I'm going to open them. When I open them, unfortunately, you won't be able to see the slide. So if you want to take a quick picture, a screenshot, or if you want to pull up the presentation from the agenda, that will probably be helpful. I will ask for those of you, when you join breakout groups, you will notice that we have our new members that will be joining. So I'm going to ask those that have been a part of SACE to help lead that conversation. I have provided here some very direct questions that I need answers to. So if there is a question, I would love to have an answer there. I'm going to try to pop into each one, but it'll give you about 10 minutes to get that conversation started. At the bottom, you will also see that I have a question about days and times that work best to pull you together. So this previous year, we did have separate subcommittee meetings so that we could come back to our SACE meetings with an agenda and updates so that we did work outside of just our quarterly meeting. Please make sure you touch on that question. What day and time works best if we need to pull together as a subcommittee group? Because that will then establish how I set up future meetings. For some context, previously we did like the first Monday for the SACE report at 3 o'clock, that subcommittee met. So whatever works based on your schedule, because some of you are classroom teachers. So please keep that into consideration. We will need that information. Chair, I will ask that we give these discussions at least 20 minutes because there is a lot. And if you haven't had time to kind of delve into this, please take the time to do that. Any questions for me? All right, so I will give you one more second if you want to take a picture of this or bring it up, and I will open all of the rooms so that you are welcome to go ahead and join one, and you can go ahead and enter those rooms.
Dr. Leslie, our group was not able to discuss our meeting availability. Do you want us to just hang on after, like at the
Yeah.
end? Okay, we'll just do that.
We'll just take a second at the end to do that.
That works.
And Chair, it looks like everyone is back. I know we're moving into the chair and vice chair nominations. I have those prepared, and we just
Okay.
need to know whether or not people accept those nominations or decline, and then I will have a link for formal voting.
Sounds great. Okay, so when Dr. Leslie shares your name, if you will either accept or decline your nomination, we'll start with, do you want to start with the chairperson?
Yeah, we can start there. So I put it in the chat as well. So we had 3 nominations for chair: Stephen Bell, Anita Locklear, and Candace Revels. And so I will just start at the top. Stephen Bell, do you accept this nomination?
I do.
Anita Locklear, do you accept this nomination?
I decline.
Candace Revels, do you accept this nomination?
I decline.
Well, Stephen, we don't need to vote on that one.
I did it again.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
We will move to vice chair nominations. We had 2, Candace Revels and Tamara Carter. Candace Revels, do you accept this nomination?
I do.
Tamara Carter, do you accept this nomination?
I do.
Okay. Well, I will give me a split second. I'm going to drop a voting link in the chat. If you will go ahead and vote as quickly as possible. And on my end, I need to see 11 votes. Six so far. Nine. We're missing just 2. Okay, I have 11, and the results show that your SACE chair for the 26-27 year will be Stephen Bell, and your SACE vice chair will be Candace Revels.
Okay. Congratulations. Thank you, Dr. Leslie. All right. Congratulations, Candace.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. So, with that, we are at the end of our time together. SACE report, folks, if y'all can hang on just a few minutes after and we can figure out our monthly meeting schedule. For those who have started school, I hope you have continue to have a good transition back to the school year. For those who are starting next week or in the coming weeks, I hope you have a good first day. Our next meeting will be October 23rd. Hopefully in Raleigh if tech works out, but we'll see. So thank you, Dr. Leslie, for helping us pivot. Any other closing remarks or any questions anyone's got?
I just have a quick remark. As you all know, the 2020 2026 accountability data will be publicly released at the September board meeting. We always have a presentation about it in October, but it's a lot to digest at the October meeting. I would encourage you to look at that report when it is released at that September board meeting. I will be sure to send that out. Many of your districts have already received the data, but just a reminder that as SACE, we look at an American Indian achievement overall for the entire state. So I want to encourage you during September and early October just to take a glance at that accountability data as it relates to American Indian students. That way we can have a very intentional conversation in October. I just know it's a lot to digest all at the October meeting. It's a lot of data at one time.
Yeah, thank you for that. And be on the lookout for when we do a virtual session for our juniors and seniors about NC College Connect. We'll be sure to share via email and on Facebook as well, so that we can get as many students and families involved. So with that, I do need a motion to adjourn.
Dorothy Yates, no further business. I move we adjourn.
And do we have a second?
LaRhonda Bowery, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. With that, we are adjourned at 12:49. Again, SACE report, folks, if y'all can stay on for just another minute. Everybody else, I hope you have a great afternoon and a great weekend. We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.